Aya Wilson dominated headlines with her game, but Caitlin Clark has taken control of the market. What began as a heated college rivalry has now evolved into a stark business divide. Clark's brand has exploded, with major endorsements and industry-wide recognition that now total over $16 million annually. Wilson, despite years at the top of the WNBA, has watched her influence stall. She fought hard for her Nike deal.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
But hasn't broken through beyond that. The difference? Clark connects. Her positive image, leadership presence, and cultural relevance have made her more than an athlete. She's a business asset brands want to bet on. This isn't just about money. It's about momentum. Clark is setting a precedent for how athletes in women's sports can evolve into global influencers. Her clean, aspirational public image contrasts with Wilson's more divisive persona, which continues to hinder her commercial growth. As Clark's market presence keeps expanding, she's redefining what it means to be the face of a league, not just in sports, but in branding, influence, and legacy. Caitlin Clark has officially been crowned the highest-paid WNBA star at $16.1 million, and the fallout has been immediate. Sportico's report didn't just make waves, it detonated a bomb right in the middle of the league's ongoing tensions. And standing right at ground zero is Aya Wilson, who is furious that Clark has leapfrogged her in earnings, endorsements, influence, and cultural reach. And let's be honest, this wasn't just a surprise. For Wilson, it was a humiliation, because for years, Aya Wilson was the measuring stick of the WNBA. MVP titles, championships, dominance on both ends of the court. She built her resume the traditional way, through performance, loyalty, and longevity. She believed success in women's basketball worked like a hierarchy. Pay your dues, collect awards, and eventually the spotlight finds you. But today's market doesn't care about hierarchies. It doesn't care about seniority. It doesn't even care about championships. It cares about impact. It cares about reach. It cares about influence. And that's where Caitlin Clark has completely redefined the equation. Sportico's numbers don't lie. Clark's $16.1 million isn't coming from her rookie contract. It's coming from the corporate world that cannot get enough of her. Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, high-profile speaking engagements with six-figure payouts, leadership summits, corporate conferences, brand collaborations that go beyond sports entirely. Clark is everywhere, from commercials to magazine features to events filled with people who don't even watch basketball. That kind of cross-industry reach, that's what brands are paying for. Meanwhile, Aya Wilson's income still leans heavily on her WNBA salary and a single Nike endorsement deal she openly campaigned for. She got the contract, yes, but the effort it took to secure even that one brand partnership revealed a harsh truth. Corporations just weren't lining up to invest in her. And that's the real source of the fury. Not just that Clark is earning more, but that Clark's earnings confirm what the market has been hinting at for years. Wilson is not the face of the sport she thought she carried. Clark is. And that shift didn't happen quietly. It didn't happen gradually. It happened the moment Clark entered the league and immediately injected unprecedented viewership, fan engagement, retail sales, and media attention. Those spikes didn't just lift Clark. They changed the financial ecosystem of women's basketball altogether. But while Clark was broadening the sport's reach, Wilson was narrowing hers. And this isn't speculation. It's directly reflected in the numbers. Wilson's endorsements never grew beyond basketball. One Nike deal. No major partnerships in lifestyle, business, or global industries. No speaking fees from corporate summits. No multi-brand campaigns or conference appearances. Her brand stayed inside the arena. Clark's brand left the arena and expanded into the world. That's why Wilson's earnings lag hundreds of % behind Clark's. The income divide is not a surprise. It's the logical outcome of two very different brand trajectories and two very different public personas. Because Clark doesn't just play basketball. She influences consumers. She inspires fans across multiple demographics. She speaks to corporate audiences connects with youth sports, and resonates with communities far beyond the WNBA's usual reach. She's seen as positive, grounded, and aspirational, everything a company wants to align with. Wilson, in contrast, has fought a reputation that brands find risky. Public controversies, divisive commentary, a pattern of undermining Clark's success on and off the court. These aren't private grievances. These have shaped the way audiences perceive her. Brands don't jump at ambassadors who generate hostility or polarize communities. They invest in figures who unify, uplift, and expand. And those traits aren't subjective. They translate directly into corporate decisions. Clark is seen as a safe, positive, scalable asset. Wilson is seen as unpredictable and limited in reach. That's why their earnings look the way they do. And if you think Wilson isn't aware of the gap, her reactions say otherwise. The subtle shade. The comments framed as critiques of media narratives. The tension that's become impossible to ignore. Clark's rise didn't just surpass Wilson's income. It exposed Wilson's deepest insecurities. Because this rivalry goes back further than the WNBA. It goes back to college, where Wilson dismissed Clark's greatness and questioned her accomplishments. Clark carried her teams through historic performances. She broke records, fueled viewership spikes, and became a phenomenon before stepping into the professional world. Wilson, by contrast, succeeded on rosters stacked with talent. That doesn't take away from her skill, but it does contextualize why her individual influence didn't resonate the same way. Clark wasn't just valuable because of stats. She was valuable because she moved markets. Wilson's success didn't create that kind of ripple. And in the endorsement world, influence matters more than accolades. Brands are trying to relive past championships. They're trying to reach audiences now, and Clark delivers that reach instantly. She sells jerseys. She fills arenas. She drives partnership revenue. Her commercials go viral. Her appearances boost ticket sales. Her presence alone can elevate an event or product. Wilson simply doesn't generate that level of impact. And here's where the frustration becomes unavoidable. Clark's growth is still accelerating. Her cross-industry influence is expanding. She's entering new markets Wilson can't access. Not because of skill, but because of persona. Leadership events don't invite her. Corporate brands don't fight for her. Lifestyle companies don't build campaigns around her image. Clark does all of that effortlessly. She isn't divisive. She isn't combative. She isn't associated with negativity. For brands, that combination is a goldmine. And Clark has turned that into a business model. She didn't just become the highest paid athlete by accident. She became it through intentional branding, professionalism, and expansion. She tapped into leadership circles, business communities, and global networks that Wilson has never entered. Meanwhile, Wilson's choices have confined her brand to a single lane, the basketball lane. And in 2025, a single lane doesn't generate $16 million. Corporations are investing in multi-industry influence, not single-category athletes. Clark is built for that world. Wilson is not. And that's what has her furious. Because deep down, the financial disparity is a direct reflection of something far more uncomfortable. The long-term value each player brings to brands. Clark creates growth. Wilson does not. Clark unites audiences. Wilson divides them. Clark elevates the sport. Wilson maintains it. That's not disrespect. That's market reality. So the question becomes, where does Wilson go from here? Does she adapt? Does she evolve her persona? Does she broaden her reach beyond the court? Or does she continue down the path of resentment? Watching Clark expand into a global icon while she remains confined to a narrow, basketball-only brand? Because Clark isn't slowing down. Every appearance, every partnership, every new endorsement pushes her further into territory the WNBA has never seen. She's not just the highest paid star. She's the blueprint. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Io Wilson is justified in her frustration? Or has Caitlin Clark simply mastered the modern athlete model better than anyone else? Drop your thoughts below. Like the video if you're following this new era of athlete branding. Share it if you think more people need to understand what's driving the numbers behind the headlines. And subscribe, because we're diving into every rivalry, every shift, and every dramatic storyline transforming women's sports right now. There's no other way to say it. Caitlin Clark just shattered the ceiling, and the sound of it is echoing all the way to Io Wilson's corner. $16.1 million. Not career earnings, 2025 earnings. That number hit like a thunderclap. And not just because it made Clark the highest paid player in WNBA history. Not just because it made her the highest paid female athlete across all sports. But because it laid bare a truth that's been building behind the scenes for years. Clark isn't just a player. She's a phenomenon, a business, a brand. And the rest of the league? Watching her in the rearview mirror. Io Wilson, once untouchable in the WNBA pecking order, is now staring down the uncomfortable reality that talent alone doesn't secure your legacy anymore. And for a player with multiple MVPs, championships, and a decorated resume, that realization is not just frustrating, it's infuriating. Because this isn't just about money. This is about meaning, about recognition, about who the culture chooses to carry the sport into the future. And whether she'll say it out loud or not, Wilson knows the spotlight has shifted, and it's not coming back anytime soon. Caitlin Clark is the face of a new era. The Sportico report didn't just validate her, it institutionalized her dominance. Nike, Gatorade, State Farm, six-figure speaking gigs at corporate conferences, packed arenas, viral social clips. She doesn't just lead the league in media coverage, she is the media coverage. And it's no accident. Clark built her brand the modern way, on connection, clarity, and control. She doesn't feed controversy. She doesn't stir the pot. She leads with composure, communicates with intention, and engages with a fan base that spans demographics. Kids love her. Parents respect her. Executives trust her. Meanwhile, Io Wilson is still stuck in a brand identity that doesn't translate. Yes, she's a proven winner. Yes, she's talented beyond question. But talent doesn't equal traction, not in a marketplace that thrives on relatability and resonance. Wilson's public persona, laced with bitterness and frequent attempts to undermine Clark's achievements, has turned off both fans and brand alike. Didn't have to be this way. Wilson had a moment where she could have embraced Clark's impact. She could have stood beside her, recognized the power of collaboration, and positioned herself as part of the league's new commercial rise. But instead, she chose defiance. Passive-aggressive interviews, tweets that felt more like subtext than support, constant reminders that she was here first. And brands noticed, because while Clark was building bridges across industries, Wilson was burning them. This isn't about some petty rivalry. This is about how athletes are being evaluated in real time by billion-dollar corporations that don't just want winners, they want representatives. People who fit the story. People who make the audience feel something positive. And in that category, Clark is lapping the field. She's not just likable, she's scalable. Think about it. She's already become the go-to face for companies that have nothing to do with basketball. That's not just reach, it's power. She's closing deals in boardrooms that WNBA veterans have never even been invited to. And the fact that she's still in the early stages of her career, that's what's making everyone nervous. Because she's already changed the ceiling, and she's nowhere near finished. Let's talk about the money again. That $16.1 million isn't an outlier. It's the beginning of a trend. Endorsements are increasingly tied to narrative and audience activation. Clark brings both. Wilson, unfortunately, brings neither, at least not in the same volume, not in the same way. Wilson's Nike deal? She had to publicly fight for it. And even then, it's her only major partnership. No cross-industry presence. No major lifestyle brand backing. No six-figure speaking gigs at leadership forums or economic summits. Her earning potential is capped, and it's capped by something bigger than the box score, perception. And the perception is this: Wilson is polarizing. Clark is unifying. That's why brands are choosing her. That's why audiences gravitate toward her. That's why executives build entire campaigns around her. It's about more than basketball now. Clark is the total package. She moves product. She moves tickets. She moves culture. And Wilson, for all her on-court dominance, hasn't been able to do the same. Not because she can't, but because she refuses to play the game off the court. And that's what it is now, a two-game system. One on the hardwood, one in the marketplace. Clark is a lead in both. She brought record-breaking viewership to the NCAA. She brought unprecedented attention to the WNBA the second she stepped in. And now, she's bringing in massive corporate investment. That's not hype. That's history. And it's making other players very uncomfortable. Because for the first time, they're realizing that staying in your lane might mean staying broke. That endorsements don't automatically follow accolades. That a good stat line doesn't matter if you're not marketable. That controversy doesn't generate cash. It closes doors. And Wilson is feeling all of that in real time. Her reactions say more than her resume ever could. She can't hide the resentment anymore. The optics are clear. She's watching the sport's financial future be built around someone else. Someone younger. Someone newer. Someone who was once dismissed as a fad, but is now redefining what success looks like. The jealousy isn't even subtle. It shows up in the interviews where she name-checks Clark without naming her. It shows up in the jabs disguised as honest conversation. It shows up in the way she tries to reframe the narrative, pushing the idea that real basketball fans know who the true star is. But here's the truth. Fans don't pay contracts. Brands do. Markets do. Media does. And all three have already made their choice. Caitlin Clark is not just the highest-paid athlete in women's basketball. She is the most valuable. The endorsements prove it. The audience engagement proves it. The corporate deals prove it. And the fact that she's generating more income in her first year than most WNBA veterans have across an entire career, that cements it. This is a new era. The rules have changed. And Wilson's resistance to that shift is what's holding her back. She can keep fighting the numbers. She can keep claiming that the spotlight is on the wrong person. But at the end of the day, the scoreboard isn't just on the court anymore. It's in earnings, in deals, in cultural capital. And Clark is up big. So what now? Does Aya Wilson finally pivot, lean into a more market-friendly version of herself? Or does she double down on resentment and watch the gap widen even further? Caitlin Clark being crowned the highest-paid athlete in women's basketball wasn't just a milestone. It was a message. And no one heard that message louder than Aya Wilson. For the last few years, Wilson carried herself as the face of the league, and with good reason. She had to resume MVPs, Defensive Player of the Year awards. She was the blueprint for what greatness looked like inside the WNBA bubble. But that bubble just got popped. Sportico's report didn't just showcase Clark's earnings. It exposed an entirely new value system in professional sports. One that no longer rewards just dominance on the court, but dominance everywhere. In media, in branding, in influence. And right now, there is no contest. Caitlin Clark owns every category. Her $16.1 million in earnings for 2025 didn't come from her WNBA salary. It came from being the name brands want. Nike, Gatorade, and State Farm didn't pick her for her stats. They picked her for her story, her presence, her power to move people and products. She's a walking marketing engine. And that reality has Aya Wilson watching everything she built be overshadowed, publicly, financially, and culturally. Because Wilson didn't just get past, she got leapfrogged. She spent her career climbing the ladder rung by rung. And suddenly Clark parachuted in and took the whole ladder. That's not just a professional sting. That's a personal one. Especially when you look at how hard Wilson had to fight to get any endorsement at all. That Nike deal Wilson has, she had to campaign for it. She had to publicly pressure the brand. She had to beg for the respect she felt she earned. Clark, meanwhile, was handed multi-brand partnerships before her rookie season even tipped off. It's not just a difference in treatment. It's a total difference in brand equity. And that has everything to do with perception. Caitlin Clark is considered safe, strategic, inspirational. She's featured on magazine covers. She headlines corporate events. She draws viewership numbers that shift media rights. She's not just in the WNBA. She's expanding the WNBA. Wilson, on the other hand, has a brand image that many in corporate America find difficult to translate. The controversy, the divisive takes, the public shots at Clark, whether it's intentional or not, it sent a signal. Aligning with Wilson means risk. And most brands, they don't want risk. They want reach. They want relatability. They want someone they can build an empire around. That's why Clark is eating. Her earnings reflect more than performance. They reflect versatility. She's not boxed in a basketball. She's speaking at business conferences. She's appearing at women's leadership summits. She's on stage with executives, not just reporters. She's creating a long-term brand architecture while Wilson's still playing checkers. And the numbers show it. Clark's influence brings in fans who've never watched a WNBA game. Her jersey sales spike overnight. Her involvement in an event guarantees a sold-out crowd. Brands know this, and that's why she's out earning everyone, including Wilson, by a wide margin. And let's not pretend Wilson hasn't noticed. Her reaction to all of this hasn't exactly been quiet. She's made comments, thrown shade, and the way she continues to dance around Clark's name while dissecting the media's treatment of her says it all. It's jealousy, frustration with a system that no longer rewards the model she followed. Because for years, Wilson believed excellence would be enough, that trophies would guarantee opportunities. But Clark proved that in this new era, connection is the currency. Visibility, storytelling, approachability, and Clark nails every one of those. Wilson's reluctance to adapt isn't just costing her money, it's costing her legacy. Because right now, fans under 25 don't see her as the league's leader. They see Clark, and that's not a popularity contest. That's influence measured in dollars and data. The fact that Clark is now being discussed not just as the face of the WNBA, but of women's sports entirely, is exactly the kind of narrative shift Wilson thought she had already earned. But you don't earn that just through stats anymore. You earn it through resonance. And Caitlin Clark resonates. She appeals to the traditional sports fan and the casual viewer. She's humble, composed, and stays out of drama. She lifts teammates in interviews. She avoids controversy like a pro. She knows the cameras are always rolling, and she acts like it. That level of control, it's intentional. It's the playbook of athletes who plan to build empires. Clark is doing what no one else in the league has been able to do. Become bigger than the game while still respecting it. She's leading a movement, intentionally or not, and the companies writing the checks understand exactly what she represents. And that's why the money looks like it does. And why Wilson's frustration is about much more than numbers. It's about watching the future form around someone else. Wilson, by contrast, plays with a chip on her shoulder and talks like it off the court too. That attitude might win games, but it's not winning over brands. And while the jealousy simmers, Clark just keeps rising. She's redefining what it means to be a franchise player. Not just someone who wins games, but someone who grows everything around the game. Revenue, audience, culture. That's what brands want now. That's what leagues want. And Clark delivers it every time. The WNBA hasn't just found a star in Caitlin Clark. It's found a business model. A blueprint for how to commercialize the game in a way that reaches beyond niche markets. She's the proof that if you build the right brand, the money will follow. And it has. Meanwhile, Wilson is left having to decide, does she evolve or continue to resist? Because the longer she stands in opposition, the further she falls behind. The market has spoken. Clark isn't just making more money. She's making history. She's changing the conversation around what success in women's sports actually looks like. So where do you stand? Is Caitlin Clark's rise a sign of the times? Should Io Wilson be adapting? Or is she right to be frustrated by the shifting value system? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like the video if you're watching the evolution of athlete branding in real time. Share it with someone still stuck on stat sheets. And hit subscribe. We're following every rivalry, every reaction, and every moment that's shaping the new face of women's basketball. Because Caitlin Clark isn't just cashing in. She's rewriting the rules.